bad news just comes, okay? And sometimes it comes more frequently than not, all right? And so it may seem like, boy, that's an awful negative message. No, I think it's a positive message. Positively, bad news is coming, okay? The question is how are we going to respond to it? But how long does it take us, and don't answer out loud, but how long does it take us to get over bad news? How long does it take? Or maybe the better question to ask is, how long should it take for us to get over? Have you ever known somebody that just can't get over it? It's like they've been dealing with this for every time you see them, they're still dealing with it. You know, raise your hand if you've ever seen somebody that's like they can't get over it. Yeah, pretty much we all have kind of seen that person. There's a story I want to tell you about a lady named Noella. She's from Melbourne, Australia. You're going to love this story, okay? I hope that you stay awake. Some of you, I think with the mask, with the heat blowing up in your eyes, you have a tendency to go to sleep. So if I call your name, that means I caught you sleeping. So everybody listen closely this morning, because if you hear a name, they were sleeping, all right? So maybe that'll be an encouragement to you. So I don't trust her back there. I just don't trust her. And so Noella lived in Melbourne, Australia. And she found out that her stepmother had passed away, and she traveled to the memorial service. Brother Goff's looking at Sister Goff saying, I bet he's going to call my name here in just a minute. And I love my viewpoint on Sunday. I do. I love what I get to do. Thank you guys for letting me be your pastor. So, and pick on you and unmercifully. So anyway, so her stepmother had passed away, guys. It's a sad time. Be serious, please. And so after the funeral, she went back to her hotel, and she called her husband Belinga, okay? She didn't call him Belinga. Belinga was his name, okay? And so, I go, what's a Belinga? That's her husband. And she called him up to tell him how the memorial service went. I mean, that would be what you would do probably. And she told him, and she was sad, and she was going through it. And he's, after talking to her a while, you know, the guy's attention span is probably a little bit shorter than maybe what it should be. And so he tells his wife, he says, listen, why don't you step outside, get some fresh air, maybe take a short little walk, and you'll feel better. You know, just go on outside. So she said, I think that's a good idea. I'll call you later on. And so they say their goodbyes. I love you too. I love you more than that, all that kind of stuff. They hang up the phone, and she goes outside. Now, what she doesn't know is her life is fixing to move from bad, suffering the loss of her stepmom, to worse. It's fixing to get bad. She doesn't know it. She's walking outside for refreshment, and what she doesn't know is that two guys are going to meet her gunpoint, and they're going to hold her hostage. They're going to put her in her car, in their car, and they're going to take her to a place, to a building. They're going to tie her up on a chair and gag her where she can't talk, and they're going to express to her that they are going to kill her. So she walks outside, and that exact thing happens. So she's... the men are telling her that we have been tasked with the task of killing you, and the person who's asked us to do that is your husband. And she doesn't believe the story, much like you. Some of you snickered because you think I'm telling a joke. And so they called her husband up, not telling them that she was there, and said, do you want us to go through with this? And he says, yes, please kill her. And so she hears all of this. So when she hears it, she passes out. That, if you're going to pass out, there's a good time. There's your moment, okay? Pass out. When she comes to, I think they had felt sorry for her. And they said, we're going to let you go. They put her back in the car, took her out on an abandoned road way out in the middle of nowhere, and put her out of the car. They gave her the cell phone. They gave her all the tapes, recordings of her husband making calls and emails to request this murder to happen. And they gave her the receipts for the $7,000 that Beligna had paid to have her murdered. So here's where it gets interesting. She goes back home to Melbourne, Australia, and she decides to attend her own funeral because Beligna doesn't know that it didn't happen. So he's at the funeral mourning. Not in the morning, but mourning. He's wailing with the best of them. And at the end of the funeral, when it was just him, she walks up to him. He's speechless, as you can probably imagine, because he's thinking, is it my eyes? Is it a ghost? Because she's dead. And she says, surprise, I'm still here. I won't tell you the rest of the story, but I will tell you this. Beligna spent 9 years in prison because of that. But here's my real question. How long would be an adequate amount of time to get over something like that? How long would it take you? A day? A week? I mean, how would you feel, Dodd, if you heard that Bob put a hitman out on you? Would it take you an hour to get over it? A day? A month? A lifetime? Or maybe just a cast iron skillet and then him to take a nap and we could kind of end it all right here? Yeah, it would probably take you a little while to get over the fact. Hope she's not thinking anything back there. It would probably take you a little while to get over the fact that your spouse just tried to have you killed. How do you get over something like that? But the fact of the matter is, most of you are never going to have to deal with your spouse trying to kill you. That's good news, I hope. I hope I never get the call, Pastor Kevin, I just found out that Bob paid $7,000 to have me murdered. I hope I never, because that would be the first time, although this church has been a few other firsts for me, that would be the first time I've ever heard that one. Because I'll be like, I don't know what to tell you. You better pray. You better fast while you're at it. Tell him I said hi. So the bottom line is this. We would have a hard time dealing with something like that. And most of us will never be hit with that kind of news in any kind of way. But some of us have been hit in our world in the last few months with this news. You're laid off of your job. Some of you have maybe been hit with the bad news at one point in your life of bankruptcy. I can't go any further. I can't do any more. I'm bankrupt. Or maybe you've been hit with the news of divorce. And there's even some that have been hit with divorce again. And it just kind of seems like that the bad news is out there, or maybe it's the worst case scenario call from your doctor to tell you the test results that you never wanted to hear. And that was your moment that the time started clicking. How long would it take you to get over that? Some of you are maybe dealing with the loss of a loved one or loss of a friend, because bad news comes in all kinds of shapes, forms, and fashion. Whatever kind of hole you have in your life, there's a bad news that will fit in that way. They'll make it fit just for that. There's a spot for it. And sometimes you just want to borrow a big umbrella, like maybe the church's golf umbrella, because you can put 46 people under it. And you just want to go stand right in the center of it so no bad news can rain down on you, because it stopped being phone calls and emails or mail coming in the mail. Now it's just raining bad news. It's just like, what's the weather? It's just rain and all of it's bad. Have you ever felt that way? I mean, have you ever just felt like it's just coming down? And sometimes you just feel like asking the question, like what's on the screen, just when will it stop and when will it go away? And that's why we started this series, to talk about some issues that I think are real issues. And it's really okay to even tell God. I know you disagree with me. I've said it before and you didn't like it then either, but it's okay to tell God that you're upset with it. It's okay to tell God you don't like this, or God, why is this happening? Some people are like, I could never tell God, the most holy God in heaven, I could never tell him that I'm upset with how this came down. Really? You're going to talk to somebody about it. And don't you think he might by chance be listening? You better whisper that one. Are you following me? There's absolutely nothing wrong with telling God that. God, I don't understand why this is happening. God, I don't like the fact that this is happening. It's okay to tell him. Some people don't pray because they don't know what to say. Because in their heart, they're so mad or they're so upset and they're like, well, I've been told I can't go to God that way, so I got to get myself happy so I can go to God to get help to get over it. Do you see that makes no theological or logical sense? You come to God just as you are. If you're mad, you come to God mad. If you're angry, it doesn't matter. God's not intimidated if you're mad at him. He's not going to be like, oh my goodness, Jim's upset with me. What shall I do? By the way, he wasn't sleeping. I just used him as an illustration. Oh my goodness. God the Father, what do I do? Jim's upset with me. He's not worried. He can handle it. He's a big guy. He's a big God. Remember, you said that. So this is kind of the questions that led us to this story in the Old Testament book of Ruth. I got to get going, but just in case you haven't been here, and I think most of you have, let me give you a quick review. This is the whole story about a married couple and their two boys, kind of like the Brady Bunch. Here's the story of a woman named Naomi and her lovely husband Elimelech. You know, I'm just making this up as I go. And they only had two boys, no dog and no maid, but that's where the kind of story is. I think today's just the spirit of a hard day because you guys didn't think that was funny either. And I'm giving you my best material here. You can at least kind of work with me. But they were from the little suburb called Bethlehem. Yes, it's the same place where Jesus would be born later on. The economy had gone down the tubes, so they left there. They went to Moab. They never asked God, should they go to Moab? That's where we usually get in trouble when we start trying to figure things out on our own. Shortly after they get to Moab, Elimelech, the breadwinner of the house, dies. So now Naomi is a widow with two sons. She raises the boys up, and about 10 years later, finally gets them married off, and finally they die too. So now not only is she a widow, she's now childless, okay? Things are going, talk about it raining, okay? By then, she goes back to Bethlehem because things kind of are getting better there. Naomi decides to go home. Ruth decides to go with her back to Bethlehem. Naomi is struggling with the fact, and she's telling people, don't call me Naomi because that name means pleasant. Instead, call me bitter. Okay, so she's really changed her whole perspective of the way she feels about herself. Don't call me pleasant, call me bitter. Have you ever known somebody you just like to rename them? Because like, here comes complainer, or here comes, you know what I'm saying? You never done that? Yeah, you have. I'm sure you have. How many of you are sitting beside somebody you wish you could maybe rename them? I don't know, maybe not. Or maybe they're just across the room, or maybe not. It doesn't matter. So, but bad news just keeps coming, Jim. They're not going to laugh at anything. I'm just not going to try anymore. And so Ruth decides to go to work, and by divine coincidence, she ends up working in a field owned by a family member named, very good, Boaz. Quickly notices Ruth and takes interest in her, but Ruth isn't looking for a man. She's just trying to cope with her new circumstances of being a widow, and Ruth isn't really a stranger to bad news at all, so that's kind of where we left the story last week, okay? And so she meets this guy named Boaz who suddenly gets very interested in Ruth, okay? And that's where the lights go down and the Brian McKnight music. 1, you're like a dream come true. 2, just want to be with you. Or the Marvin Gaye music or whatever kind of music. Do you guys have songs like that that's like your romantic song, husbands and wives? How many of you have songs like that? Raise your hand. Oh, come on. Y'all don't have no love songs. Well, my Lord, that's your problem right there. Y'all ain't got, Jim, Brother Goff, y'all ain't got no love song that, oh, come on. I need to do a marriage series. That's my problem. What was the one from the first service? Oh, Julie Curry was here the first. She said, well, I don't know if it's a romantic song. Guys, I hadn't listened to the words of this, so I'm not sure that it's sanctified or holy to mention up in this church right here. But she said, well, our song's Fishing in the Dark. I'm like, it's a country song. All right. And Fishing in the Dark. Go home and listen to it. But if it's bad, you didn't hear from me. Me and Melody, our song is Back at 1 by Brian McKnight. It says, 1, you're like a dream come true. 2, just want to be with you. 3, girl, it's plain to see that you're the only one for me now. You know, come on. Everybody say, oh. Now you wish you had a song, don't you? Guys, get a song, for goodness sake. Get a song and come home and say, baby, I can't sing like nothing, like I sing like a cow. But listen to this man sing right here because that's what I'm saying to you. And you just watch what happens. The meals will get better. She'll be rubbing your feet at nighttime, massaging your back at nighttime. You'll be going, oh, feeding you grapes and fanning you. Just singing, the 1, you're like a dream come true. I just keep singing it. So that's what kind of happened. I know you guys don't care, but it's anyway part of my message. So the question that I want to ask is, because I think we're all there, and kind of the title of today's message is, how do you move on when you don't know what to do? Because I believe every one of us are in a place in our life at some point, because I kind of know a little bit about some of your lives, And I know that all of us are probably there, so I didn't plan to talk about this today specifically for you, but I planned this months ago before you were ever where you are. But I think maybe God had it orchestrated for all of us because we're all at a point, at some point in our life, that we want to move on from here. We want to leave this room that we're in, maybe a padded room, and we need to get out of this place we are and go where we need to go, but we don't know what to do. What do I do next? Have you ever been in that place? You don't have to raise your hand, but I'm sure most of you have been at that place when you're dealing with bad news. There's some people that come to you and they just tell you first, get over it. Just get over it. Maybe you've been the victim of having had that said to you, and if you are, I'm sorry. Or maybe worse yet, you have been the one that said that to somebody. You know what you need to do? You just need to get over it. You know, and that's comforting. Thanks. You know, what else do you serve with, because that's no good. Just get over it. That's why I'm not, one of the things you have to do as a pastor is sometimes you have to counsel people. I'm lousy at counseling because my idea of counseling is this: admit it, quit it, forget it, get on with it. That's all you need, bro. Just admit there's a problem. Quit the problem. You know what I'm saying? And get over it and get on with your life. Just go on. But I'm smart enough to realize that it takes counselors. Thank God my wife is almost, fact, while I'm thinking about it, my wife will graduate come December with her degree in church ministry with emphasis in counseling. What is up with that? Yay for Melody. She's not there yet, but she's so close. And she has to do that to live with me because she counsels me all the time. And we want to say this simple little phrase of get over it when really get over it is not a possibility sometimes. It's just not possible of just getting over it. And that's the reality regardless of how I feel. Because nobody likes feeling stuck. And that's exactly what we feel when we're grieving and we can't get out of it. We just feel like we're stuck. And about the time, I was talking to somebody the other day, they said they take 2 or 3 steps forward and 14 back. And then they get up the next day and they're like, yes, I'm taking steps, only to take about 12 back the opposite way. And sooner or later at the end of the month, you find out you've gone backwards more than you've gone forwards, and you don't know what to do about it. But you're grieving, you're sad, you're perplexed, you're overwhelmed, you're full of fear, you're hurting, or whatever your situation is, and you want to leave it, but you don't know how to do it. And really, I'm telling you, God cares about that. What kind of a message would it be if God says, well, you're on your own there, I only do certain kind of things? That's not what God says. He had more for Naomi. He had more for Ruth. He has more for you. And you can go on from here if you choose to. A lot of it is right between your ears, right up there in that gray matter. So go ahead, grab your outline real quick. Let's get going to number 1. Number 1 is this. Write this down because I'm telling you, if you, in the first service this morning, I asked the question, how many of you had a great last week? In other words, you had no problems last week. Everything was smooth in your life for 1 week. And I actually had a person raise their hand. My mom raised her hand and said, I had a pretty good week. Everybody turned and threw things at her. It was a riot for just a moment because they were jealous. I'm just telling you, I told her right there in front of God and everybody, get ready because this is your week. I'm speaking as positive as I can because the Bible says in this world, which happens to be where she lives, tribulations are going to come. So if you didn't get yours last week, guess what? The UPS man is just late with the delivery. It's coming. It's absolutely going to happen. And it may happen to you next week. And if you don't write this down, Cindy, you won't remember it when it comes to you and you'll be like, what do I do? I'm going to tell you what you do right here. Don't call me this week and say, Pastor, I don't know what to do, because I'm going to say, get your sermon notes out. Okay. I'm just in a rare mood today. Realize that there's no such thing, number 1. There is no such thing of getting over it. Realize that there is no such thing of just getting over it. We say it to ourselves, I just need to get over it. Nope, it doesn't exist. You may not be able to start over, but here's your key. You can start again. There's no such thing as getting over it. You may not be able to start over. You can't go back to your mother's womb and try it all over again. You can't do it. You can't go back to this morning and say, I'm going to relive this morning. You can't do it. You cannot go back in time. I know the music says, the movie says Back to the Future, but you can't. There's no time machine. There's no DeLorean you can get in and go anywhere. If you don't know what that means, it was just a movie. Go fishing in the dark, you'll figure it out. So loss of any kind is not something you just get over. You can't just start over. You can just start over. You can't go back in time, but you can choose to start again. And from that moment on, you can say, I'm going to rewrite my future by changing what I did in the past. I'm going to do some things from this moment forward. You can't change what happened to you yesterday, but you can affect what's going to happen to you today and what's going to happen to you tomorrow. You have a point of reference here. You can at this moment decide that. Naomi and Ruth had decided to go back to Bethlehem. Ruth had been working through 2 harvest seasons. It was just the girls, Naomi and Ruth, forever friends. And all of a sudden, and Ruth was working through the things in her life, and that's when Ruth chapter 3 verse 1 takes place. And here's what it says. One day, Naomi says to Ruth, keep in mind, everything was going good. They were buddies, having a good time back in Bethlehem, living the life. And Naomi says to Ruth, my daughter, it's time that I found a permanent home for you, so you'll be provided for. In common man terms, what she said is, it's time for you to move out and go on with your life. Well, that's not what it says. That's exactly what she said. It's time for me to find you a home. That means this one ain't yours. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if you've ever been told that, but that's what she was just told. And she says, so that you'll be provided for. So what's she really saying? She's saying, you've been a good daughter-in-law to me, but we can't go back in time, Ruth, and we can't live in the past forever. My husband is gone. My boys are gone. Your husband is gone. But now it's time that we start thinking about your future. We can't stay where we are. We can't go back and change anything, but we can start worrying about the future. Sometimes we're so locked up in the past of what happened yesterday that tomorrow or today can never happen. This is not in your notes anywhere, but I pray you'll write this down, because this is probably the key to the whole message. And that is this, that moving on is more about willingness than readiness. Moving on is much more about willingness than readiness. Let me say it one more time. It's not on your paper. You'll have to write it down. Moving on is way, 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 way more about willingness than readiness. Let me prove that point to you. You were never really ready to move out of your parents' home. Some of you say, oh, yes, I was. When I left, I was ready. Really? I wasn't. Because when I got out and I found out some wonderful things, like now I have to buy my food. I just thought Mom and Dad would bring the groceries over. Maybe I even thought she'd come over and cook at my new place, but it didn't happen. And furthermore, she didn't pay my rent. And it came due every month. And then there's this wonderful thing that if I want lights and power and heat and air conditioning, they want me to pay for it. I've not paid for that for 18 years. I wasn't ready. You'll never be ready to get married. Trust me. No matter how good she is or how good he is, you're never ready. Because you're going to experience things as you go further and further and further along in the marriage, that you're having to make adjustments, that you're having to make alterations to things. You're having to change. They're having to change. And you were not ready for that. You might have been willing, but you weren't ready for it. You didn't have, because ready means you have everything ready. You know what to do, when to do, and how to do it. That's not realistic. It's kind of like not having a love song. Okay. You're never going to be ready to have children. I remember asking that question, and people asking me and my children's mother, are you guys ready to have kids? Oh, yeah. And then they came. I wasn't ready for that. I'd never seen so much poop at one place. I didn't know it ran up your back. I didn't know it could smell so bad. I didn't know they would stay up all night crying. I thought if you turned the light out and shut the door, they would hush. I didn't know that they would one day grow up and become a teenager and talk back. That's a capital crime in my house. That could be death penalty. Or at least I thought I was dying. You didn't know that one day they would grow up and move out of your house and break your heart. You didn't know that your little girl would one day grow up and Marry some hairy-legged boy that you didn't approve of to begin with because he wasn't good enough for your daughter, and it cracked your heart. You were not prepared for that. You might have been willing, but you weren't ready. And it's kind of the same thing about moving on. All of us, all of the most amazing things that happen in life, you'll never be ready for. You just have to be willing to go there. I was not ready for the day that I met Melody, but I was willing. Are you following what I'm saying? The most amazing things that are going to happen in your life are not going to be things that you ever had any chance to prepare for. They're just going to happen in the middle of nowhere. And you're going to go, wow, that's so cool. I love it. I never knew it was coming. Those things that just catch you by surprise, outside of your realm of being a control freak. So Naomi, sometimes someone who is well acquainted with grief or loss, and she goes to Ruth and says, hey, I've been thinking about your dwelling here, and you need to plan to move on. We need to find you a place so you can be taken care of. And she's saying, are you willing to start thinking about your future? And so the first thing that we need to do is realize that there's no getting over it. You may not be able to start over, but you can start again. The second thing you need to do is choose to trust someone who is trustworthy. Choose to trust somebody who's trustworthy and be willing to take their advice. Choose to trust someone. You don't know it all. Choose to trust someone who's trustworthy and be willing to take their advice. Let me stay right off the top of the list so I can cover my base as well. The bottom line is the most trustworthy person we know is God. But sometimes, but often, but almost always, God uses people. That's what, since we're a Spirit-filled church, word of wisdom, word of knowledge is. It's somebody else maybe confirming something to you that God will confirm to you or already has confirmed to you through His will, through His word, through another way that He confirmed it, and somebody else comes along and confirms that to you. Bam, you know it's God. But you've got to be willing to trust them. Some of you have been hurt so bad, so many times and so often that you've said these words, I'll never trust anybody again. You've just cut off all the help you need to go through or to get out of where you are. So now you are stuck in the pig pen you're in. You can't get over it. You can't start over. You can start again, but you got to be willing to trust somebody. You've got a lot of voices going on in your head compelling you for your time and your attention. And how do you know which ones to listen to? Because there's all kind of voices. That's the way it is in our media right now. Depending on what channel you're listening to, there's all kind of voices for you to listen to. There's those that say, oh, the virus is this. Or those that say, oh, the virus is that. There's like a million different ways you should wear a mask, you shouldn't wear a mask. Masks do a good job, masks don't do anything. There's all kind of voices out there. So you've got to learn which one to really listen to. There are some people who will rush into your life to help you move on with your life, not because they want what's best for you, but because of how your grief makes them feel. Some people want to come to you and help you because they see you grieving, and they're trying to help you because they don't like the way that you make them feel when you're around them. Have you ever met somebody like that? Every time you're around them, they're a Debbie Downer. Like you see them coming and you don't want to ask them the question, how are you doing? Because you know they're going to tell you. And you're like, I don't want to hear this again. It's not that you don't care. It's just I've heard it 12 times. And it's the same old wah, 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 wah. You know what I'm saying? So those voices, they want you to listen, and those are voices of people oftentimes who love you, who want what's best for you. Naomi knew firsthand what Ruth was going through. Naomi knew exactly what Ruth was going through because she had gone through it 10 years earlier, and she knew that it was time for Ruth to move on, and that's why you see it happening in verse 3 of chapter 3. She says, now do as I tell you. That's the listening to someone who's trustworthy. In case you didn't really believe me, that's what just happened there. Naomi says, listen to me, I'm going to tell you what to do. And I'm telling you on the authority that I love you and I care about you. Now listen to me and take some advice. She says, now do what I tell you. Take a bath. I just like to stop there. The sentence goes on. Have you ever wanted to tell somebody that? Maybe it's a 13-year-old boy who's just learning that he really does have to wear deodorant and take a bath every day. Like my son just figured out why take a bath? I'm going to get dirty again tomorrow. The stink can't get any worse than it is today. Oh, yeah? It can. Yeah, take a bath. That's what Naomi told her. She says, take a bath. But he goes on. And put on perfume. I said this in the first service. I probably shouldn't, but take a bath. Melody's got this perfume called J'adore. J-A-D-O-O-R-E, I think. By Christian Dior, I think. J'adore by Dior. You know, isn't that ever a rhyme? And listen, guys, when she puts that, she's had enough. When she puts that on, it's like the 4th of July in my brain. I mean, some of y'all don't have love songs. Y'all don't know what I mean. I'm like, wow, that is the most amazing smell. I mean, it's just like whatever you want me to do, Melody, I am your servant forever. Just let me smell you. You know what I'm saying? It's just that way. So that's what, go fishing in the dark. So you take a bath and put your best J'adore or your best whatever kind of perfume you wear and dress in your nicest clothes. Ladies, there's a success map to get the man. You want his attention? Take a bath, put your perfume on, dress in you'll get his attention. Come on, somebody. Okay. Y'all ain't going to say amen if I said Jesus is Lord. So then, go to the threshing floor, but don't let Boaz see you until he's finished eating and drinking. Remember that point. I'm going to tell you something that's very important, ladies. You want to know this. Faith is trusting in someone who is trustable. Sometimes God uses people. At some point, you're going to have to choose to trust again and to trust somebody and say, hey, I need help. Can you help me with this? And allow them to speak in your life. Number 3, let's go on. Be willing to risk again. Be willing to risk again, even if it means that it won't work out in the end. Be willing to risk again, even if it means it may not work out in the end. This is the scariest part about starting over, the fear that it might not work out because it didn't work out for me last time. It probably won't work out. That's the way some people work. Well, I had bad luck before. I drove down this road. I got a flat tire 2 times in my 58 years of living. If I drive down that road, I'm going to get a flat tire. And that's just the way they live life. Nothing new can ever happen to you because you're bound to the way it always was. You've got to risk again, even if it means the things that it won't work out. So, what I'm going to read to you next, I want you to know is full of cultural implications. I don't want you to miss the point with what happens, because there's the thing that happens is so big. It's full of 3,500 years worth of cultural implications. So let's read this. Some of you are going to say, well, I would never do that. Okay, you wouldn't do that, okay? But you don't have a love song either in your life. So come on, get with me. Ruth chapter 3, verse 2. Listen to this. I love it. I love this part of the story. Boaz is a close relative of ours. This is Naomi talking. And he's been very kind by letting you gather grain with this young woman. Tonight he will be winnowing barley at the threshing floor. Now do as I tell you. Remember the verse, we just read it. Take a bath and put on perfume and dress in your nicest clothes. Then go to the threshing floor. Listen, ladies, but don't let Boaz, some of y'all need to get that. Take a bath, put on your best, smell good, go to the threshing floor, but don't let Boaz see you until he is finished eating and drinking. Ladies, here is your word from God. You want your man to listen to you. Let him eat his dinner first. And men with a spine said amen. I thought revival would break out right there. Let the man eat. And then unload on him if you must. Just a word brought to you by Kevin. Number 4. Be sure and notice where he lies down. Pay attention to your man. It was dark apparently where they were going, so she says, pay attention where he goes to lie down. Then uncover his feet and lie down there, and he'll tell you what to do. Now, most of you ladies will say, I ain't laying at his feet. If he wants me, he'll let me lay up close to him. I ain't laying by the feet. You go ahead then. But Naomi did just what Ruth did not say. Lay at his feet? Are you crazy? Think about it, guys. They didn't have Reeboks and New Balance and workman's boots back then. And if they did, they probably stunk to high heavens. Anyway, let me go on. Don't get caught up in the methods of this culture. You're going to miss the most important thing here. Ruth is going to take the biggest risk of her life probably because she's saying, I'm willing to trust again. I'm willing to go to a man and to put my trust in this guy. And this is going to be hard for me. This is a big moment in my life because I'm stepping out of where I've been and I'm saying, you know what? I'm going to trust again. That's what's happening right here. So you can see how scary, but moving on to the next chapter of your life is going to require you to be willing to take those kind of risks, even though it may look like it's not going to work out. Guys, this story, even though it's about a woman, goes for you too. Sometimes you have to be willing to take risk and step out as the men of God that you say you are and take risk and step out and do things because you're stepping out in faith, not in fear. And even though you may fall flat on your face, you're going to die moving forward, trusting God. And that's what's going on here. It's not about laying at her feet. Number 4, I've already said the point, prioritize faith over fear. Prioritize your faith over your fear. Prioritize your faith over your fear. What about all the fear that's raising up inside of me? At some point, you got to punch fear in the face. Now, can I just be honest with you? Over the last few days, and I got to hurry because my time is gone, but the first service went late, so I got to be fair. You're going to have to go a little late too. I only got 2 more points. Hang with me. Here's the deal. All this virus stuff, I don't do well with medical things. I'm not afraid of most things. I'll step out when most people won't step out. I'll risk when most people wouldn't risk. That's why I've only played poker twice, and both times was at my father-in-law's house. Yes, John Goff. The ex-pastor, poker. Come on, listen to me. Because Sharon Goff and Melody going to get me after church. Remember, my last words was I played poker at his house. I got pictures. I'll show you. You got to raise money for the building fund somehow. No, we weren't playing for. And this is why I go over my time. I'm not good at poker. The bottom line is because I'll just put it all in every time, and that's not wise. I know that. That's why I don't go to Las Vegas and play poker, among other reasons, of course, spiritual reasons, of course. I'm not good at it. I'll put it all in. But sometimes this whole virus thing, this whole medical thing, I don't do good with medical. Like if I got to go to the dentist for a cavity, I'm pretty sure he's going to find brain cancer while he's there. You know, and if I'm going to get just an ingrown toenail cut out, I'm pretty sure they're going to find some kind of major disease with my body. I'm just believing God for it. I'm trusting Jesus. Jesus here going to find it while he's cutting that toenail. You know what I'm saying? Totally stupid. Like I took my temperature at least 14 times yesterday. 97.8, 97.3, 96.9, 97.8. Oh my goodness, Melody, it's going up. It's gone 0.2 of a point up. I got the fever. You better take me to the emergency room. Quarantine time. What will I eat? Who will cook my breakfast? All those important questions. But at some point in your life, guys, I'm just being honest with you. I can stand here and act like I'm all perfect and have no problems. I'm telling you, that's my weak area. What's yours? There's a lot of areas I'm really strong in, but sometimes you just got to stand up, double up your fist, and punch fear in the face. And say, you know what, I'm going to come to you with faith rather than fear. But all I feel is fear. Well, I'm just going to keep punching what I can feel till I feel something else. It's what you have to do. Naomi gives Ruth these instructions. I got to go on. There's so much could be said right there. And look what Ruth says in return. She said, I'll do everything you say, she replied. She went down to the threshing floor that night and followed the instructions of her mother-in-law. After Boaz had finished eating and drinking and was in good spirits, after that, everybody say after, he laid down at the far end of the grain pile and went to sleep. Then Ruth came quietly. Remember, she waited just like Naomi had said. Uncovered his feet and laid down, and around midnight Boaz suddenly woke up and turned over. He was surprised to find a woman at his feet. How about you, huh? I mean, like, what? I mean, Bob, if you wake up and somebody's laying at your feet, what are you going to do? Like, oh, hey, how you doing? I mean, That's not what you're going to do. You're going to be like, what are you doing there? And just not know you're there. Because if not, it's not going to be good for you. Or me. Okay? So verse 9 says, who are you, he asked. I am your servant Ruth, she replied. This is so big, guys. Spread the corner of your covering over me, for you're my family redeemer. She stepped out and punched fear in the face and said, you know what? I'm going to stand up with faith and I'm going to do what I was told to do. And I'm asking him to cover me. What she was saying is I'm putting trust in you. I'm putting trust in somebody, and that somebody is you. I'm trusting you, Boaz. It was a big deal. I don't know where you are in your life, but there's some area of your life that or else God wouldn't have had me speak on this. Somebody's needing to hear this, that you're needing to take a step, and you don't even know if it's the right step, but you're going to take a step, and when it happens, you're just going to say, hey, I'm stepping out in fear. I'm scared half to death. I'm not sure it's the right thing to do. I'm not sure it's the right time, but I'm stepping out in faith, believing when I put my foot down, there'll be a firm foundation, Jesus Christ, for me to stand on. Point number 5, trust that God has already put the right people in your life to help you get through what you're going through. Let me say it again a little slower. Trust that God is already putting the right people in your life to help you get through what you're going through. Just a little short testimony because I am way out of time, but here's the bottom line. A long time ago, I moved to Pennsylvania. I did not want to move to Pennsylvania. I'm sorry, Pennsylvanians. I had no interest in your state. I was very fine in the deep South. I like the food there. I like the weather, and I like the fact that there's not piles of white snow. I like the deep South, but God said, you're going to Pennsylvania. I didn't understand that at all. And then all of a sudden one day when I didn't know how I was going to get through what I was going through, God allowed me to intersect my path with this girl named Melody. And Melody added so much value to my life and changed my life that I now understand that God was orchestrating something. He was moving this person here, me, so that I could intersect with the path of her, because she was going through something and I was going through something, and we needed our paths to cross. So he picked up the piece of my game thing off the board and moved me here and moved her here, and he's been doing that. God might be having somebody move right now from Texas to Hanover, Pennsylvania, to intersect your path, to say something to you, Cindy Gant, or to Judy Harmon. And maybe I don't even know why I met this person, but this person spoke this to me, and it changed my life. God is already putting people in your path. You don't have to go off to the side looking for it. He puts them right smack in your path, and you got to dodge them to miss them. That's why it's so easy to just choose faith, because I know that this may hurt and it may be a hard thing, but you know what? I know that whatever I go through, even if it's something I don't want to go through, while I'm going through it, God's already put people right there for me that I need to help me get through it. Ruth chapter 3 verse 10 says this. The Lord bless you, my daughter, Boaz exclaimed, you have shown more family loyalty now than you ever did before. That's why you can say your latter will be greater than your past. And you're so worried about the tough time you're going through right now because it's hard. What you're going through right now may be the biggest challenge of your life. But I'm telling you, your next will be better than your past. That's the way God works. I thought somebody would shout right there. Verse 11 says, now don't worry about a thing, my daughter. I will do what's necessary, for everyone in town knows you're a virtuous woman. But while it's true that I'm one of your family redeemers, there's another man who's more closely related to you than I am. Stay here tonight, and in the morning I will talk to him. If he's willing to redeem you, very well, let him marry you. But if he's not willing, then surely as the Lord lives, I will redeem you myself. Now lie down here until morning. So Ruth laid at Boaz's feet until morning, and she got up before there was enough light for people to recognize each other, because small towns talk. For Boaz said, no one must know that a woman was here on the threshing floor. Then Boaz said to her, bring your cloak and spread it out. He measured 6 scoops of barley onto the cloak, placed it onto her back, and he returned to town. Here's what I want to tell you. No matter what the problem is, there is a calendar with your solution on it with a certain date. There's a date that it will come to an end. And the only way that you don't get to that date is to stop trying and to quit. You win if you don't quit. You can't quit. You reap if you don't faint, if you want me to quote it from Scripture. There is a date, there is a time in mind that God has got it all figured out, that there will be the pivot point for you. And when you hit it, how can you say that? I've never seen God take, or not God allow to be taken and God not repay. Have you? Have you ever seen somebody go to God and leave worse off? Have you ever seen somebody trust God and in the end God failed them? God, I'm very disappointed in how you worked this out. The only reason we say that is because we quit midstream of the story. We want that to be the final chapter. We don't want that to be just another chapter in the book. We're ready to end it, and God says, no, it keeps going. So as you go through this process, you're getting closer to the day with that date on it. God has already put the right people in your life to help you get through. The last point is this: be patient with God's process as He works it out for you. Be patient with God's process. Be patient with God's process. Can I tell you how many times a month I say that to me? Be patient with the process. But be patient with the process. God will work it out for you. But God, you don't see how bad it is. Really? Ruth chapter 3, verse 16, Ruth went back to her mother-in-law, Naomi. Naomi's been up all night long trying to text her, but she won't text back. She's saying, why didn't you put nothing on Facebook? I don't know how your life's been. What happened, my daughter, she says. Fair question, huh? Ruth told Naomi everything Boaz had done for her, and she added, he gave me these 6 scoops of barley and said, don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed. Guys, there's your word. Bring your mother-in-law gifts often. That just came to me. The first service didn't get that. Do we have anything we can give your mom this afternoon? Okay. All right. Then Naomi said to her, listen, yeah, there you go. Send her shopping. Just be patient. Naomi's talking again. My daughter, until we hear what happens. Listen to this. The man won't rest until he's settled things today. I think that's a beautiful type of God right there. God will not rest until He's settled everything for you. And if you ask me how, I'm going to tell you words you don't want to hear of, I don't know. Because some of your situations I kind of know, and I'm like, I don't see how it's going to work out. But God will not rest until He's worked it out. He said He'll work all things for those to the good, to those, here's the qualifications now, that love Him and are called according to His purpose. Are you there? Because if you are, He promises to work it out. So if it ain't good, it ain't God. Just wait. Be patient. Don't complain about the process. Don't complain about the bus ride. Anticipate the destination. That was pretty good right there. I just have to admit, I didn't say that first service. That was pretty good. Don't complain about the bus ride. Anticipate the destination. If there was a tweeting person in here that would put that on Twitter, you'd get a lot of likes, I guarantee you. Can you help me remember that? I'm going to remember. Don't complain about the bus ride. Anticipate. Sometimes I just amaze myself. Anyway, let me go on. Y'all are a tough group. I promise I'm ending right here. All you have to do is put one foot in front of the other. Let me wrap it up with this. Realize that there's no such thing as getting over it. You may not be able to start over, but you can start again. Number 2, choose to trust somebody who's trustworthy and listen to their advice. Number 3, be willing to risk again, even if it means that you might not work out in the end. Be willing to trust. Prioritize your faith over your fear. Doesn't mean you won't have fear, but prioritize the faith. Turn it around. Every time it happens, turn it around. Kind of like a chiropractor. He doesn't fix it the first time, does he? He makes you go back for visit after visit after visit. That's the way faith is. Snap it in place, it'll come back out. Snap it in place, it'll come out. Sooner or later, it's going to stick there for a little while. Number 6, be patient with God's process as He works things out for you. And remember this, that God has more for you, and you just have to be patient. If I had time, which I don't, I would say to you, be patient. God's going to work everything out, and I would call your name. I would say, Jim, be patient. God's not through with you, and what you thought was done is really just midstream. Cindy Gant, be patient. What you thought was hard times and life's not going to work out, and I don't like the way things going, is just midstream. Just work it. Just stay with it. Stay with God. You're just in the middle of the process. Terry, Jerry, where you're at right now is not where God wants to take you. This is not the final chapter. This is not the end. This is just the middle of the book. God's still writing. Stay patient. Wait for the process. Bob, Dot, regardless of what you're going through, regardless of how bad it hurts, no matter how much you don't understand it, regardless of how much you just want to throw up your hands and quit and just say, I've had enough. I'm telling you that this is not the end of your story. This is not how the book will end. When it's all said and done, you will see God move in your life. You'll see God move in your situation. It's not over. Don't complain about the bus ride. Anticipate the destination that you're headed. Father, I thank you for another Sunday.